The next speaker, Nicola Mazzanti, curator of the Royal Film Archive Cinematheques in Brussels and president of the Association des Cinémathèques Européennes. We will speak about orphan works and audiovisual collections.
Which language? That's a good question. I'm facilitated by the fact that whatever language I speak is not mine. So you can't accuse me of. I must say that but I checked, I did a statistical sample, and I realized that English is the common language here today, seeing the attendance, which will be for a couple of years. Then, as you know, English is out and Gaelic is in. I'm actually very interested in learning Gaelic. It's been a long journey to this day. The case of Belgian legislations, a bit longer than others, since the last piece of legislation was published yesterday night. As Mr. Giorello reminded, it's a long way that started a few years ago. The Film Archive, through the Association of European Film Archive, ACE, has been working on, together with the Commission and others, to come to the point where the directive existed, and most importantly, where the audiovisual collections were included in the directive, which, as you might recall, in the beginning was focused on books and other media and not audiovisual. And today I feel a bit like, I don't know about family stories, but I'm used to this thing about driving with the whole family, and then we get there, and then nobody liked the place. So we were on holidays, and the kids said, yeah, there is no basketball field, and the pool is too short, and my wife was not happy about breakfast, and they had no good tea. Yes, but we are still there. It's a holiday, let's have a bit of fun. And after 10 years of fumbling around this directive, that's exactly how I feel. Yeah, it's not everything. First of all, it doesn't cure cancer. Second, it doesn't make me rich. And most particularly, although I tried, Jennifer Lopez is not interested in dating me because I can talk about the Orphan Works Directive. No, seriously, the Orphan Works Directive is a tool. It's a tool that solves a specific, tries to solve a specific issue in what I consider a complicated field. It's a tool. It is not meant to solve all the problems. It solves one part of the many problems institutions have. No, I rephrase. One of the problems citizens have to look at their past and history. Because ultimately what we do as institutions is not for the pleasure of showing our collections. Actually, we are much better off if we show nothing to anybody, so we don't have to work. But the problem is that we serve a society who have the rights to see their own past. And so, a lot of this past is locked up. We cannot show it, we cannot read it, we cannot distribute it, we cannot study it, we cannot research it because of uncertainties and complexities. The other problem is that today it is extremely difficult, and this we do every day. Do you have this picture of King Leopold? Yes. Can you put it online? No. Can I see it? Yes. Can you send me a DVD? No. can you come? You have to come to Brussels. And the answer is, why on earth? Why should I go to Brussels in 2016 to see something about Belgium? And when this comes from a researcher in Wisconsin, or sorry, they are not EU, from Malta, it's harder to explain. In 2017, it was perfectly fine in the 60s. But the 60s, I'm afraid, are gone. And the complexity of the picture is due to the fact that, as in many other fields, the 60s are gone. So we are dealing with a evolution that was much faster than what happened in 100 years before. There was no need to register cars. Today I realized that I forgot to register my car yearly in Italy, so I'm in trouble. Anyway, why would I? Well, there is a law that says I have to register my car, and I also have to pay tax. I swear to you, this law did not exist in the 18th century, because there were no cars. Now, there is a thing which is called internet, and digital distribution, and platform, and I don't particularly believe in any of these things. We don't have a business model, VOD doesn't work, unless you call it Netflix, and even then. And so, things changed, and we do not have the infrastructure to respond to these changes. They are not built overnight. And I think this is also true for the orphan works. The big mistake we made, as every time we work for 10 years to get something, and every day you kept saying, yeah, if we only could have the directive. And then the directive came, and we realized that it's not an overnight solution. It's a long term. We have to adapt to use this tool as we use other tools. For example, the exception which is now in the proposal to allow institutions to reproduce, be able to reproduce works for preservation, well, it's something that for some countries they must get used to it. We in Belgium had it for decades. So we were used to it. We are used to it. We use it every day. We've been using that for 20 years. Is that a solution to everything? No. Because we still cannot show what we preserve, but at least we can preserve. Which is one of the reasons why, differently from many other countries, everything of our natural collections has been copied and preserved. Differently from many other countries where the stuff still sits there and risk of rotting. So, it's a one step in a complex picture, and it is what I consider not something that will work overnight, but something where we have to adapt, all of us. Institutions, and of course the infrastructure. Because Mr. Giorello was very right to say that we have an issue of information made in data. Now I refer strictly to the audiovisual sectors where we have challenges, complexities. We have, first of all, multiple authors. I would love to deal with books where there's a guy who writes it and then we're done. Well, we have a bunch of them, and more authors come up and say, we should be authors too, which is great, so we have even a more complex picture. We have an issue called co-productions. This European audiovisual landscape has been a continent of co-productions basically just after Pathé and Lumière, so since more than 100 years, which makes, of course, the thing complicated, as we all know. We have a level of, an extra level, which is the level of production and producers, as rights aggregator, which introduces a level of, other entities and rights and things to identify, and all of this in a system that did not require a register for cars because the cars were not there. It's not a critique. It's simply that we are in an industry that was based on a business model that now is challenged, has to change and to adapt to the new business model. The business model was simple. I make a film, I distribute it, I put it in the theater. When it gets out of the theater, I throw it away, which means I give it to a film archive, or they steal it in order to save it, or whatever. That was simple. For that system, you don't need databases, because as soon as the thing is over, then you throw it away, it doesn't exist anymore. Simple. Then it became more complicated over the years. There was television, and then VHS, you remember VHS, which is still more titles on VHS than on DVD, closed brackets. So we do this thing, and then thing develops. Well, we are not yet completely there. And one thing that one side effect of the Orphan that I noticed in these months is that some countries are getting it, and some countries are already talking about, for example, revamping or reorganizing their register for rights of films by taking the example of France, where it works. There is the registre des œuvres où il y a information about the rights, which is basically the only source of information about the rights transfer and rights ownership, that it really works extensively over the whole value chain and over a long period of time, which is France. Even Italy, can you imagine? I mean, this things I'm telling you today, just exactly the same things I said in front of the Ministry of Culture in Venice a few months ago. And the unbelievable thing, not only that the Minister of Culture listened and stayed, which was remarkable, but it's also the fact that they are upgrading their metadata infrastructure so that they are gathering information and trying to see how it could work. Il pubblico registro cinematografico, which doesn't work in Italy at all, is completely used now as a not very useful tool. They are thinking about changing and making it useful. Why? Because of the copyright. Because of the Orphan Directive. So we have to work on this. And as institutions, we try to do this. One of the side effects of the Forward project, of which I will not talk, because others will talk, and we will bore you enough with that, is that a lot of institutions did a lot of research on rights, on ownership, on authors, and so on. And keep in mind that we are looking for authors that were active 100 years ago, because the more you go back in time, the more orphans you find, and the more difficult it is to find authors and sons and heirs and daughters. The worst are the daughters. Why? Because they get married, and when they get married, they get another name, and when they get another name, where the heck do I find? So it is complex, and it is more complex, and it requires research, including, acts of registers for death and so on. So it needs a complicated thing. Of course, always in collaboration with CMOs, which hold a part of the information, because CMOs, we know, they are not active from Lumiere. The Lumiere were not inscribed, all their films were not registered in a CMO catalog. So we all have to adapt, the sooner the better, to a completely different environment, where we as public institutions are requested to do things differently, and we need to do it in a legally clear environment, which is the other big advantage of the directive, that we finally have a legal environment, a legal framework in which we can do certain things and we cannot do other things. Am I happy? No. Is what I wanted? No. AC made a lot of statements and things detailing what we wanted, but as always, of course, a law is not always what you want, so it is a compromise. Of course it's a compromise. Can it work? Yes, but certain things it works. Does it solve all the problems? No, of course it doesn't solve all the problems. Are there things that don't make sense and they make the transactional cost, the translation, the research cost higher than they should be? Oh yes. Why should I check a catalog of East Germany production for a film that was made before East Germany? Does it make sense? No, it doesn't make sense. And as Mr. Joello said, we will fix it. There will be a discussion. Hopefully there will be a table on which we discuss and say, well, this is not really, why should we waste time researching something from the beginning we know it doesn't apply. Flexibility, intelligence, understanding that we are talking about films nobody cares. I had a very interesting conversation with at one of the meetings of Commissioner Oettinger, where I had to talk to producer and I said, well, we have orphans. I said, oh, orphans, why we come to orphans? I think it's Orphan. And you know, I'm talking about this. He said, oh, that stuff, oh, we don't care. You can do what you want. I thought you were talking Metropolis. It was German. Anyway, I said, no, we don't want to show Metropolis. I mean, please, no, not again. We want to show other stuff. So we needed to go, and I think if we take the directive and the work about the orphan on a longer term or a medium term perspective, instead of, oh my God, it doesn't work next week, we can solve a number of issues. Knowing that is not the question, the solution to everything, and knowing that if, as I hope, and this I conclude on the future, if, as I hope, some sort of solution for the art of commerce is introduced in the reform we're talking about, or the changing to the legislation we're talking about now, this will automatically solve many of the problems we're facing. And knowing that we are, as institutions of a film heritage institution, talking about a major art of commerce context, because the vastest majority of what we have is in art of commerce, without any doubt. A lot is on commerce, and thanks God is on commerce, so I don't have to worry about that. What I worry about is what is not in commerce. And I have 80,000 titles, and institution Cinematheques Royale de Belgique had 80,000 titles, and I can tell you very easily that 80% at least is out of commerce. Is not available and will never be commercially available in a sense of a easy to buy for a researcher support. And I refer to that to the definitional article, section 108, exceptions H of the copyright law, United States copyright law, if it will survive Trump. Anyway, well, there's a specific exception for art of commerce. Anyway, I close. This is a long discussion, as Mr. Joello said. We have more than 1 year probably to talk about this. So I will stop there. It's not the topic of the day. The topic of the day is that we have a tool that is good for certain things. It's not a Ferrari. It's good to go shopping at Aldi. It's not good for, but at least it's good for something. Solve some of the problem. We'll have to be refined over the next years. Hopefully, some things adjustment will happen. We are happy that there is a database in Alicante. We'll hear about it in a minute. And for what the project, we work together with the Commission on Forward, I mean supported with the Commission organized by the Film Archive from the Film Heritage Institutions. We were trying to have a practical solution, to have a legal, sound framework in which what we do when we do a digital search is legally done, where we log and record the diligent search automatically. So at the end of the day, it doesn't, magically out of nothing declare one work orphan, but at least it reduces transactional costs as much as it can today. The framework is also able to adapt. So when in the future more data will be available automatically to harvest, then we will reduce even further transactional costs. And that's it. Merci. Thank you. Thanks. Questions?